Earth went silent. Not the silence of death, but the silence of a predator crouching before the strike. The Council noticed briefly, then dismissed it. The Vryn blockade reported normal activity within the Sol system. Mining operations continued. Construction projects proceeded. Scientific research stations transmitted routine data. Everything appeared ordinary for a species confined to their home system. The Council stopped paying attention. They had more important matters: disputes between member species, trade negotiations, the politics of a galaxy that had forgotten what real danger looked like. Earth became a footnote again, exactly as they preferred. But on Earth and throughout the Sol system, something unprecedented was happening. Admiral Bora stood in the command center of Luna Station and looked at the holographic displays showing construction projects scattered across human space. Shipyards hidden in asteroid belts, manufacturing facilities buried in the moons of Jupiter, research stations deep in the Kuiper Belt, everything carefully positioned to avoid detection by the Vryn sensors. "Status report," she said calmly. An officer stepped forward. 12 capital ships are complete. Another 18 will be finished within 3 months. All vessels are testing above specifications. Bora nodded. The ships were nothing like Council vessels. No sleek elegance, no artistic curves. Human warships were brutal things, all angles and armor. They were designed with the assumption they would be hit, boarded, set on fire, and still need to fight. Every system had backups. Every section could be sealed independently. Every surface bristled with weapons. And the crews? General Sang-Woo reports all personnel are combat ready. Training exceeded all projections. In a facility deep beneath the Martian surface, General Sang-Woo watched his soldiers run through combat drills. They moved with precision that would have impressed any military observer, but that was not what made them dangerous. What made them dangerous was the look in their eyes. Every soldier knew what happened on Kepler 442b. Every one of them had seen the footage. They were not training for politics or territory. They were training for revenge. A young lieutenant approached. "Sir, the new recruits are asking about the mission parameters." Sang-Woo considered his answer. "Tell them we are going hunting. Tell them we will find the things that killed our people. Tell them we will teach the galaxy what happens when you make Earth angry." The lieutenant saluted and left. Sang-Woo returned to watching the drills. These soldiers would do things the Council considered barbaric. They would fight in ways no civilized species would approve. And they would win. On Earth, in a laboratory shielded by meters of rock and electromagnetic dampeners, Chief Scientist Hae-Jin reviewed the weapons projects. Her team had worked for 6 months straight, sleeping in shifts, driven by a purpose that bordered on obsession. The results were extraordinary and terrifying. "The kinetic bombardment system is ready," a researcher reported. "We can drop tungsten rods from orbit with pinpoint accuracy. No radiation, no warning, just physics." Hae-Jin nodded. "And the biological options?" "We have analyzed genetic samples from 17 Council species. We can create tailored pathogens if needed." The researcher paused. "Are we really going to build these?" Hae-Jin looked at the young man. "What happened on Kepler 442b was genocide. If we want to prevent it from happening again, we need to be so dangerous that no one dares attack us. That means building weapons we hope to never use." "What about the Reaper Protocol?" Hae-Jin's expression darkened. The Reaper Protocol was the worst thing they had designed. A weapon so terrible that its very existence was classified above top secret. That one we build but never deploy without unanimous approval from the leadership. It is our final option if Earth itself faces extinction. In the shadows of the solar system, Intelligence Director Young-Soo coordinated a different kind of weapon. Information. Human agents had been scattered across Council space for years, merchants and refugees and tourists. Now they became spies. They mapped military installations, hacked communication networks, identified weaknesses in Council security. Young-Soo sat in his office and reviewed the intelligence. The Skarn Dominion had 17 fortress worlds and a fleet of approximately 200 warships. They were brutal and effective, but they relied on intimidation and overwhelming force. They had never faced an enemy that hit back harder. "We have complete tactical data on their command structure," an analyst reported. "We know where Warlord Kairos keeps his headquarters. We know his supply lines, his patrol routes, everything. And the Vryn blockade? Their sensor network has gaps. We can exploit them. They do not expect anyone to challenge them directly. So their defensive protocols are focused on detecting ships trying to sneak past, not ships preparing to attack. Young-Soo allowed himself a small smile. Good, very good. Ambassador Daewon coordinated everything from a secure facility in Geneva. He slept 3 hours per night, surviving on coffee and determination. The weight of what they were planning pressed on him constantly. They were going to change everything. There would be no going back. Admiral Bora wants to know about the timeline, an aide said. Daewon studied the master schedule. Ships, soldiers, weapons, intelligence, everything coming together like pieces of a vast puzzle. Tell her we launch in 3 months. Not before. We need everything ready. And if the Skarn attack another target before then we launch early and accept higher casualties. But I do not think they will. They believe they taught us a lesson. They will wait for us to forget our fear. Daewon's expression hardened. They are wrong. Ji-woo stood in a military training facility wearing a uniform she had never expected to put on. The other survivors from Kepler 442b were there, those who had chosen to fight. Not all of them. Some were too wounded, physically or mentally, but enough. Enough to remember. An instructor approached. Commander Ji-woo, the general wants to see you. She still was not used to the rank. She was 17 years old and technically a civilian liaison. But General Sang-woo insisted the survivors be given military status. You are symbols, he had told her. The galaxy needs to see that the dead are not forgotten. She found Sang-woo in his office reviewing tactical displays. He looked up and gestured to a chair. I am sending you with the primary fleet. Not in combat, but as an observer and voice for the colonists. Is that acceptable? I want to fight, Ji-woo said, I know. But you serve a different purpose. When we broadcast our message to the galaxy, they need to see a survivor standing beside our military commanders. They need to understand this is justice, not just aggression. Ji-woo understood but hated it. She wanted to pull the trigger herself. Wanted to look the Skarn in the eyes as they died. But Sang-woo was right. Someone had to speak for the dead. Across Earth, the transformation was complete but invisible. On the surface, life continued normally. People went to work. Children attended school. Entertainment and sports and daily life proceeded. But beneath that surface, humanity had become something the galaxy had never seen. A species that chose peace but remembered war. A civilization that preferred diplomacy but excelled at violence. The final test came at a secret location in the asteroid belt. Admiral Bora watched as the first completed warship, named Retribution, ran through combat trials. It engaged drone targets with weapons the Council would consider primitive. Projectile weapons, missiles, lasers. Nothing exotic, nothing that required rare materials or complex physics, just efficient killing tools. The drones were destroyed in seconds. Bora smiled. Acceptable. Deploy the AI swarms. Thousands of small drones launched from the warship, each one autonomous but connected to a network. They moved like a school of fish, adapting to threats in real time. The Council believed true AI was too dangerous to weaponize. Humanity had fewer qualms. All systems operational, the test coordinator reported. The ship is ready for combat, Bora broadcasted to the entire fleet. All vessels, this is Admiral Bora. In 3 months, we end our quarantine. We cross into Skarn territory. We show the galaxy what happens when you spill human blood. Prepare yourselves. We are going to war. In Geneva, Daewon met with the other human leaders. They sat around a table and faced the reality of what they were about to do. This would change humanity forever. There would be casualties. There would be moral costs. But the alternative was to remain caged, waiting for the next massacre. Are we sure about this? Someone asked. Once we start, we cannot stop. Daewon thought about Ji-woo's face when she described watching her parents die. Thought about the Council's indifference. Thought about 5,000 graves and 300 slaves in a galaxy that thought humans were too weak to matter. We are sure, he said. We gave peace a chance. We tried their way. Now we try ours. The vote was unanimous. 3 months later, Ji-woo stood on the bridge of the Retribution and watched the final preparations. Around her, 30 warships prepared to launch. On Earth, another 17 ships would remain for defense. Throughout the Sol system, weapons platforms and defensive systems went active. Admiral Bora stood at the center of the bridge, calm and focused. She had fought in Earth's last wars before the peace, knew what real combat looked like. Now she would teach the galaxy. All ships report ready, an officer announced. Bora nodded. Open a channel, all frequencies. The grand chamber of Apex Prime Station stretched before them like a cathedral built for gods. Day-One walked forward with steady steps, though his heart hammered against his ribs. Behind him, Heejin carried the data tablets containing 3 decades of Earth's petition. Around them, the representatives of 12 alien species watched with barely concealed disinterest. Premier Valketh sat at the center of the curved council table. His reptilian features showed no emotion, but his tail twitched in what Day-One had learned meant amusement. The human ambassador stopped at the designated spot and bowed slightly, following the protocols Earth had studied for years. Ambassador Day-One of Earth. Valketh's voice echoed through the chamber. You come again requesting membership in the Galactic Council. Your species has petitioned us for 30 standard years. Tell us why this time should be different. Day-One straightened his shoulders. Premier, humanity has achieved planetary peace. We have ended hunger across our world. Our technology has advanced significantly. We have proven ourselves ready to join the galactic community. A clicking sound filled the chamber. Cora, the insectoid council member, was laughing. Her multifaceted eyes glittered with something like pity. Peace? Your species has been at war for 97% of its recorded history. You developed nuclear weapons and immediately used them on your own kind. Your entertainment glorifies violence. Your children play games about warfare. Heejin stepped forward. Council member Cora, we acknowledge our past. But we have grown. We have learned. The last century has been peaceful. We have channeled our energy into science, exploration, and culture. Thrum, a being of swirling gases contained in a crystalline form, spoke in harmonious tones that somehow sounded condescending. We have observed hundreds of species like yours. The pattern is always the same. A brief period of peace followed by self-destruction. You call it progress. We call it the calm before extinction. Day-One felt anger rising in his chest but kept his voice level. With respect, we are not like other species. We have faced extinction before and chosen survival. We have looked into the abyss and stepped back. Valketh leaned forward. Yes, we have reviewed your history. The wars, the genocides, the weapons of mass destruction. Do you know what we saw? A species that barely survived its own nature. You are children playing with fire, convinced you will not burn. The other council members murmured agreement. Day-One noticed that none of them looked at the evidence Heejin had prepared. They had made their decision before this hearing even began. This was theater, nothing more. We have rules in council space, Valketh continued. Civilized rules for civilized species. Conflicts are resolved through negotiation, economic pressure, and limited military actions with strict protocols. Your species knows only total war. You fight until someone surrenders or dies. This is not civilization. This is barbarism with technology. Heejin's hands clenched around her data tablets. Day-One could see she wanted to argue, to defend humanity's honor. He touched her arm gently, a signal to remain silent. There was no point. The council had already judged them. Therefore, Valketh announced, the council has reached a decision. Humanity is hereby placed under protective quarantine. You are forbidden from expanding beyond your solar system. Any attempt to do so will be met with corrective action. This is for your own good and the safety of the galaxy. The words hit like a physical blow. Quarantine. They were being locked in their own system like dangerous animals. The Vrin Armada will enforce this quarantine, Valketh added. They are more than sufficient for the task. Consider this mercy. We could have simply ignored your petition. Instead, we are protecting you from yourselves. Day-One forced himself to breathe slowly. Every instinct screamed at him to rage, to fight, to do something. But he was a diplomat. He had one question left, and he needed to ask it carefully. Premier Valketh, he said quietly, what happens if someone else attacks us first? What if another species enters our system with hostile intent? For the first time, Valketh smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Then you will learn what true civilization looks like when we rescue you. Though I doubt anyone would waste resources attacking a quarantined species. Cora clicked again. Perhaps the quarantine will teach you humility. Perhaps in another century, you will be ready to join civilized society. Until then, stay in your little corner of space and try not to destroy yourselves. The hearing was over. No appeal, no negotiation, no hope. Day-One turned and walked toward the exit with as much dignity as he could manage. Heejin followed, her face pale with suppressed fury. As they reached the door, Thrum's voice floated after them. Do not feel ashamed, Ambassador. Many species need time to evolve beyond their violent origins. Perhaps your descendants will succeed where you have failed. The door sealed behind them with a soft hiss. In the corridor, away from the council's eyes, Hyagin finally spoke. They never intended to accept us. This was humiliation, nothing more. Daewon nodded slowly. They see us as animals. Dangerous, unpredictable animals that need to be caged. What do we tell Earth? The truth. That the galaxy has rules, but those rules do not include us. That we are alone out here. They walked in silence toward their ship. The station was beautiful, filled with representatives from dozens of species going about their business. Markets sold goods from 1,000 worlds. Diplomats discussed treaties and trade agreements. Art from across the galaxy decorated the walls. This was the galactic community, and humanity was not welcome. Back on their small diplomatic vessel, Daewon sat in his quarters and stared at the stars. 30 years of effort wasted. 3 decades of hope crushed. Earth had done everything the Council asked. They had achieved peace. They had advanced their civilization. And still it was not enough. Hyagin entered without knocking. She held a tablet displaying news from Earth. The Vrin fleet is already moving into position around our system. 15 warships. They are not hiding their presence. This is a show of force. Daewon took the tablet and studied the images. The Vrin ships were enormous, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Against Earth's small defensive fleet, they were invincible. The message was clear: stay in your cage, we need to go home, he said finally. We need to tell our people what has happened. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of silence and contemplation. Daewon spent hours reviewing the hearing, analyzing every word, every gesture. One thing became clear. The Council did not just look down on humanity. They had already dismissed humans as irrelevant. Earth was a footnote in galactic history, nothing more. When they finally reached Earth, Daewon stood before the United Assembly and delivered his report. The chamber was silent as he described the hearing. The contempt in Valketh's voice, the laughter from Korra, the condescending pity from Thrum. When he finished, the silence stretched for long moments. Then someone asked the question everyone was thinking. What do we do now? Daewon looked at the faces around him. Leaders from every nation, representing all of humanity. They had worked so hard for peace, for unity, for a place among the stars. And the stars had rejected them. Now? Daewon said quietly. Now we remember who we are. 3 months after the quarantine, Jiwoo sat on the porch of her family's home and watched the twin suns set over the fields of Kepler 442b. She was 16 years old and had lived on this colony world for half her life. Earth was a distant memory of crowded cities and gray skies. Here everything was green and open and beautiful. Her mother called from inside. Jiwoo, dinner is ready. She smiled and started to stand, then froze. Something was wrong in the sky. Bright streaks were falling through the atmosphere. Too many to be meteors. Her father emerged from the house, his face pale as he stared upward. Get inside, he said quietly. Right now. The siren started a moment later. The colony alarm system, installed years ago but never used, screamed across the settlement. Jiwoo ran inside with her parents, her younger brother already crying in confusion. Her father pulled up the emergency broadcast on their screen. Nara, the colonial defense coordinator, appeared. Her voice was steady, but her eyes showed terror. Unknown vessels have entered orbit. They are not responding to hails. All citizens move to designated shelters immediately. This is not a drill. The screen switched to show the sky above the colony. Massive ships hung there, their hulls dark and covered in weapon ports. Jiwoo had seen council ships in educational videos. These were different. They looked brutal and cruel. Her father grabbed an emergency bag. The shelter is 3 blocks away. We run, we do not stop. Understand? They ran. Around them, hundreds of families poured from their homes, all heading toward the underground shelters. Jiwoo held her brother's hand tightly. The streets were chaos, people screaming and pushing. Overhead, the alien ships began to descend. The first explosion hit the eastern district. A beam of purple energy struck the ground, and everything within 100 meters simply vanished. The shockwave threw Jiwoo to the ground. Her ears rang. Her mother was pulling her up, shouting something she could not hear. They reached the shelter entrance. People were crowding through the doors, too many at once. Jiwoo's father tried to push them through, but the crowd was too thick. Then another explosion, closer this time. The western shelter took a direct hit. It collapsed, trapping everyone inside. Smaller ships were landing now, ugly angular craft that disgorged alien soldiers. They were massive creatures, easily 3 meters tall, with thick armor and weapons that crackled with energy. Jiwoo watched in horror as they moved through the streets, shooting anyone they saw. "Back to the house," her father said. "We cannot reach the shelter." They ran again, retracing their steps. Around them, the colony was dying. Buildings burned. Bodies lay in the streets. The aliens were methodical, destroying everything systematically. This was not a battle. This was slaughter. They almost made it home. The alien soldier appeared from around a corner, its weapon already raised. Jiwoo's father pushed his family behind him, spreading his arms as if he could shield them with his body. He said something, maybe a plea, maybe a prayer. The alien fired. Jiwoo's father fell. Her mother screamed and rushed forward. The alien fired again. Jiwoo grabbed her brother and ran blindly, not knowing where, just away. Behind her, the aliens laughed. It was a horrible sound, cruel and delighted. She found herself in the forest at the edge of the settlement. Other survivors were there, maybe 30 people hiding among the trees. No one spoke. They just listened to the sounds of their home being destroyed. For 6 hours, the attack continued. The aliens were thorough. They bombed every major building, burned the farms, destroyed the water treatment facility. When they finally left, ascending back to their ships with crates of stolen supplies and captured colonists, nothing remained but smoke and ruins. Jiwoo and the other survivors emerged slowly. The settlement was gone. Bodies lay everywhere. Some were her neighbors, people she had known her entire life. She found her parents where they had fallen, holding each other. Her brother sat beside them, silent and staring. A sound made her look up. A human ship was descending, small and battered. It landed near the ruins of the spaceport. A man emerged wearing a captain's uniform. His name tag read Taesung. He saw the survivors and his face twisted with rage and grief. "I got your distress call," he said hoarsely. "I came as fast as I could. I am sorry. I am so sorry." Nara emerged from the survivor group. Half her face was burned, but she was still coordinating, still trying to save who she could. The aliens, they called themselves Skarn. They said this was a message to all humans, that we are unprotected and weak. Taesung helped them aboard his ship. It was a mining vessel, not designed for passengers, but they made room. As they lifted off, Jiwoo looked down at the only home she truly remembered. Smoke rose from 1,000 fires. Nothing moved in the streets. "Where are we going?" someone asked. "Earth," Taesung said. "And then I am going to the council. Someone has to answer for this." The journey took 2 weeks. Jiwoo spent it in a haze of grief and shock. Other survivors told their stories. Over 5,000 colonists had lived on Kepler 442b. Fewer than 200 survived the attack. The Skarn had taken another 300 as slaves. When they reached Earth, Ambassador Daewon met them personally. He looked at the survivors, at their injuries and hollow eyes, and something changed in his expression. Jiwoo would later realize what she saw there was cold, controlled fury. "Tell me everything," he said quietly. They did. Every detail, every horror. Jiwoo had recorded much of it on her personal device. Daewon watched the footage without expression, but his hands clenched tighter with each minute. "I will take this to the council," he said. "They will answer for their negligence." Jiwoo found her voice for the first time in days. "They will not care. We were not supposed to be there. They will say we broke their rules." Daewon met her eyes. "Perhaps. But they will hear what happened. They will see what their indifference costs." He took Hee-jin and a security detail and returned to Apex Prime. Jiwoo watched the broadcast from Earth as Daewon presented the evidence to the council. The footage played on screens throughout the chamber. Colonists dying, children screaming. The Skarn laughing. Valkith watched for perhaps 30 seconds before speaking. "The colony was illegal. You violated the quarantine. This is the consequence of your disobedience." Daewon's voice was ice. "You would allow genocide because we broke your bureaucratic rules?" Korra clicked her mandibles. "You ventured outside your assigned space. You attracted predators. This is natural selection." Thrum's voice remained harmonious. "We maintain order through rules, Ambassador. The Skarn Dominion operates outside our jurisdiction. We will file a formal complaint with their leadership." "A complaint," Daewon repeated. 5,000 humans are dead and you will file a complaint." Perhaps now you understand why species like yours require guidance, Cora said. You lack the wisdom to survive without supervision. The broadcast ended. On Earth, billions of humans watched their ambassador stand alone before the council. Watched as he begged for justice and received nothing. Watched as the galaxy shrugged at their deaths. Jiwoo sat in a refugee center with the other survivors. Around her, people wept. But she felt something else building inside her, replacing the grief. Something hot and hard and focused. On the screen, a news anchor was discussing the attack, showing images of the colony before and after, interviewing survivors. The entire planet was seeing what had happened. And across Earth, something was awakening. In military academies, retired officers watched the footage and remembered skills they had set aside. In research facilities, scientists began calculations they had never thought to make. In government buildings, leaders had quiet conversations about impossible things. Jiwoo stood and walked to the window. Outside, the city continued as normal. But she could feel it, a change in the air. Humanity had tried peace, had tried diplomacy, had tried to join the galactic community as civilized members. The galaxy had answered with contempt and death. Her brother came to stand beside her. He had not spoken since their parents died, but now he looked at her with eyes too old for his young face. "What happens now?" he whispered. Jiwoo thought about the Skarn laughing as they murdered her family, thought about the council's indifference, thought about 5,000 graves that would never be dug because there was no one left to bury the dead. "Now," she said quietly, "we remember what we are." The Vrin command ship detected the human fleet's movement 3 seconds before it died. Commander Keltar had time to open his mouth, perhaps to give an order or sound an alarm. Then his ship simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no warning. One moment it occupied space, the next moment it was debris spreading in a perfect sphere. The other Vrin vessels in the blockade took 40 seconds to understand they were under attack. By then, 4 more ships had vanished. Their sensors showed nothing. No energy signatures, no approaching missiles. Just ships disappearing like someone was erasing them from existence. Keltar's second-in-command aboard a destroyer finally understood. "Stealth ships. They have been positioning around us for months. All vessels. Activate combat protocols. Scan for..." The destroyer died mid-transmission. The human fleet emerged from the darkness of deep space, 30 warships running dark until they were past the blockade. Only then did they power up their systems, revealing themselves like predators stepping from shadows. The remaining Vrin vessels tried to respond, but they were scattered, surprised, and facing an enemy that had spent months planning this exact moment. Admiral Bora watched the tactical display with satisfaction. "Time to elimination?" 16 minutes at current pace, an officer replied. "Unacceptable. All ships, full weapons free. End this," the human fleet opened fire. The Vrin had shields designed to deflect energy weapons, elegant defensive systems that could absorb tremendous amounts of focused heat or electromagnetic radiation. The tungsten rounds moving at relativistic speeds did not care about elegant. They punched through shields like they were not there, tore through armor plating, and carved holes through the Vrin ships. The last Vrin vessel tried to escape, engines screaming as it attempted to reach jump distance. A human frigate pursued lazily, letting the Vrin think they had a chance. Then it fired a single missile that adjusted course 17 times in 3 seconds, following every desperate maneuver before finally connecting. The Vrin ship broke apart. "Blockade eliminated," Bora announced to her fleet. "Time elapsed, 16 minutes, not bad. Now let us see if anyone else wants to try stopping us." She opened a broadcast on all galactic frequencies. "This is Admiral Bora of the Human Defense Fleet. We are entering Skarn territory. Any Skarn vessels will be destroyed on sight. Any other species approaching our fleet will be warned once. This is not negotiable." Jiwoo stood beside the Admiral watching the display. "Will they come?" "Yes," Bora said simply. "Predators always test new threats. Let them come. They will learn." The human fleet crossed into Skarn space 6 hours later. Intelligence Director Youngsu had provided complete maps of their territory, patrol routes, garrison positions, everything. The Skarn Dominion controlled 17 fortress worlds and ran protection rackets across the frontier. They were raiders and slavers, respected by no one but feared enough to be tolerated. The first Skarn patrol encountered the humans near a minor colony world. 12 Skarn cruisers, enough to intimidate most civilian traffic, They saw 30 human warships approaching and opened communications, probably expecting negotiations or bribes. General Sang Woo, commanding the Marines aboard the fleet, had a different plan. Destroy them. No warning. The Skarn patrol ceased to exist in under 3 minutes. The human ships did not even slow down. They continued toward the first fortress world, leaving debris in their wake. On Skarn Command Station Gamma, Warlord Kairos received reports of the attack and laughed. Humans? The quarantined animals came to play? Send a fleet, capture their ships. We will add them to our slave pens. 200 Skarn warships assembled, the largest military force the Dominion had gathered in decades. They jumped to intercept the human fleet, confident in their overwhelming numbers. Admiral Bora studied the tactical display. 200 vessels. They really think numbers matter. Orders? An officer asked. Swarm protocol. Show them what scared apes can do. The human fleet released its weapon. Not missiles or energy beams, but clouds of small autonomous drones. Thousands of them from each ship. The Skarn fleet's sensors were overwhelmed trying to track them all. The drones moved like living things, coordinating without central command, adapting to every defensive measure. They were not designed to destroy ships. They were designed to blind them. The drones attached to sensor arrays, communication antennas, weapon targeting systems. Within minutes, the Skarn fleet was deaf and blind, ships firing at ghosts while colliding with each other. Then the human ships opened fire. The Skarn vessels died in groups, unable to coordinate defense or retreat. Captains who had terrorized frontier worlds for years found themselves helpless, their mighty warships reduced to targets. Kairos watched from his fortress world as his fleet was slaughtered. 200 ships became 100, then 50, then 20. The survivors fled in all directions, abandoning formation and duty. The humans let them go knowing they would spread the story. Impossible, Kairos whispered. They are primitives, quarantined animals. His second in command, a scarred veteran of 100 raids, said quietly, I think we woke something terrible. The human fleet arrived at the fortress world 3 days later. General Sang-woo's Marines deployed in assault shuttles, thousands of them screaming down through the atmosphere. The Skarn ground forces were substantial, well-armed, experienced in planetary assault. They had conquered this world 2 centuries ago and held it against multiple rebellions. They had never fought humans. The Marines hit the ground and moved with purpose that terrified the Skarn defenders. No hesitation, no mercy, just efficient violence. The Skarn were used to fighting species that valued their own lives, that would retreat when casualties mounted. Humans advanced through fire like it did not matter, accepting losses to close distance. Jiwoo watched from orbit as Sang-woo's forces carved through the Skarn defenses. She knew she should feel horror at the violence, but all she felt was cold satisfaction. These were the creatures who laughed as they murdered her family. These were the monsters the Council tolerated. The Skarn fortress fell in 18 hours. Sang-woo's forces did not take prisoners among the military. Every soldier who had participated in raids on civilian populations was eliminated. The Skarn civilians, the administrative staff, the merchants were left alone. The message was specific: we are not here to conquer. We are here to punish. 16 more fortress worlds fell over the next 2 weeks. Each time the pattern repeated. The human fleet arrived, destroyed orbital defenses, landed Marines. The Skarn forces fought desperately but could not adapt to human tactics. Species that had terrorized the frontier for generations died in their command centers, their barracks, their ships. Warlord Kairos watched his empire crumble. Every report brought worse news. His fleet scattered, his fortresses conquered, his authority collapsing. He sent desperate messages to the Council, begging for intervention. The Council debated and issued statements and did nothing useful. Finally, the human fleet arrived at his personal fortress world. Kairos stood in his throne room, surrounded by his elite guards, and waited. He had weapons that could crack moons, armies of experienced soldiers, defenses built over centuries. Surely he could hold against these primitives. The orbital bombardment began at dawn, not random destruction but surgical strikes. Power plants, communication towers, military installations, everything supporting his war machine eliminated with precision. The humans were not trying to kill civilians. They were dismantling his ability to fight. Captain Taesung led the assault on the fortress personally. He had been at Kepler 442b, had pulled survivors from the ruins, Now he commanded a company of Marines, all volunteers, all people who had lost someone to the Skarn. They moved through the fortress like a natural disaster, unstoppable and merciless. The elite guards fought well, but they were defending a fixed position against an enemy that did not care about casualties. The humans used tactics the Skarn had never encountered, weapons they did not understand, and a ferocity that made the legendary Skarn raiders look gentle. Tae-sung reached the throne room. Cairo stood there, massive and armored, surrounded by his last defenders. He tried to speak, to negotiate, to offer treasure or territory or slaves. Ji-woo entered behind Tae-sung. She was not armed, was not a soldier, but her presence meant everything. She looked at Kiros, the warlord who had ordered the destruction of her home, and said one word. No. The throne room was silent after the fighting ended. Tae-sung stood among the bodies and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no relief, just empty acknowledgement that this part was done. The Skarn dominion collapsed within a month. 3 centuries of terror ended. Slaves were freed. Stolen goods returned to their species of origin. Garrison forces scattered or surrendered. The frontier worlds that had lived in fear celebrated cautiously, not sure what would replace the Skarn, but hoping it would be better. The council watched from Apex Prime, stunned into silence. They had dismissed humanity as primitive, as barbaric, as irrelevant. They had watched the Kepler 442b massacre and shrugged. Now they saw what their indifference had created. Premier Valketh called an emergency session. The humans have violated every protocol of civilized warfare. We must respond. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unprecedented in 10,000 years of recorded history. Every species representative was present, though many appeared only as holograms, unwilling to risk traveling to Apex Prime while the humans remained unpredictable. The chamber that had once radiated confidence now felt like a bunker. Premier Valketh stood at his position, trying to maintain authority while terror clawed at his thoughts. The Vryn had lost 50 ships in 30 minutes. The Skarn Dominion had been erased, and the humans were still broadcasting their simple message: approach us and die. We must respond with overwhelming force, Valketh declared. Assemble a grand fleet. Every council species contributes vessels. We show these primitives what true military power looks like. Korra's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. I have reviewed the tactical data. The Vryn fleet was destroyed by weapons we considered obsolete. Kinetic projectiles, chemical explosives, simple physics. The humans have no exotic technology, no advanced energy weapons. They are just extremely efficient at killing. Then we match their efficiency, someone argued. Thrum's gaseous form swirled with unusual turbulence. You do not understand. Our fleets are designed for civilized warfare. Limited engagements, acceptable casualties, political objectives. The humans are fighting total war. They accept losses we would consider catastrophic, because they are not trying to win politically. They are trying to eliminate threats permanently. An intelligence officer projected a hologram showing human military capacity. Current estimates suggest they have 47 warships operational. Based on their industrial capacity within the Sol system, they can produce approximately 5 ships per month. If we delay military action for a year, they could have 100 ships. In 5 years, 300. The council members absorbed this in horrified silence. The entire Vryn armada numbered 80 ships. The combined council fleets totaled perhaps 500 vessels, spread across the entire galaxy, and the humans were just beginning. We need time, Korra said. Time to mobilize, to adapt our tactics, to prepare proper defenses. I propose we open negotiations. Negotiations? Valketh's tail lashed. They ignored our authority. They destroyed our enforcement fleet. They have shown nothing but contempt for council law. They showed contempt because we showed them contempt first, Thrum said quietly. We dismissed them. We quarantined them. We allowed the Skarn to massacre their colony and told them it was their fault. Are you defending them?
I am stating facts.
We created this situation through our arrogance. Now we must deal with the consequences. After hours of debate, the council reached a decision born of desperation rather than wisdom. They would offer humanity an audience, not as supplicants but as equals. The vote was close, several species arguing for military action, but fear won over pride. The message was sent. Ambassador Day One responded within an hour. We accept. We will come to Apex Prime. If any hostile action is taken against our delegation, we will consider it an act of war against Earth. Your station will be the first target. The naked threat stunned the Council. Civilized species did not threaten to destroy neutral diplomatic stations. But then, humanity had stopped pretending to be civilized by Council standards. 3 days later, Day One arrived. He brought Admiral Bora and Commander Jiwoo. No guards, no weapons, just 3 humans walking into a chamber of species that had dismissed them as primitives. Every step radiated cold confidence. Valketh stood as they entered. Ambassador Day One, we have granted you this audience to discuss terms of our council membership, Day One interrupted. That is why we are here. Not to negotiate our actions, which we consider justified. Not to apologize for defending ourselves. We are here to establish Earth's place in galactic society. The blunt statement caused murmurs throughout the chamber. Valketh's tail twitched with suppressed rage. You presume much. You have violated every standard of civilized conduct. You wage war like animals. Admiral Bora stepped forward. Her uniform was immaculate, her posture military perfect, her eyes hard as stone. We wage war the way war has always been waged. The way it was waged before you became comfortable and soft. You created rules that made warfare safe for politicians while those actually fighting died for your entertainment. We reject your rules. You slaughtered the Skarn, Korra accused. We eliminated military forces that attacked human civilians, Bora corrected. We freed their slaves. We left their civilian populations alive and unharmed. That is more mercy than the Skarn showed our colony. The Skarn operated outside council jurisdiction, Valketh insisted, which is exactly why they felt safe attacking us, Day One said. Your jurisdiction, your protection, your rules, all meaningless when someone weaker needs help. We learned that lesson. We will not forget it, Commander Jiwoo stepped forward then. She was young, barely 18, still wearing the scars from the Kepler 442b attack. When she spoke, every council member heard the voice of 5,000 dead colonists. I watched the Skarn murder my parents. I recorded them laughing while they burned our homes. I came to you and begged for justice. You told me it was our fault for breaking quarantine. You filed a complaint. She paused, letting the contempt sink in. We filed our complaint differently, with warships and marines, and the Skarn will never laugh again. Thrum's voice was subdued. What do you want from us? Day One presented humanity's terms. First, the quarantine is ended permanently. Earth has full rights to expand, explore, and establish colonies wherever we choose. Second, Earth is granted full council membership with all associated rights and responsibilities. Third, any species that attacks human interests faces total retaliation from Earth. Not council mediation, not economic sanctions, total war. Those terms are unacceptable, Valketh said, but his voice lacked conviction. Then refuse them, Bora said calmly. Assemble your grand fleet. Come to our system. We have run the simulations. You will win eventually, but we will destroy half the Council's military capacity in the process. And every species in this chamber will spend the next generation rebuilding while wondering which of your neighbors might take advantage of your weakness. The horrible part was that every council member knew she was right. The tactical analysis was clear. Humans would lose a long war, but the cost to the council would be catastrophic. And there were other predators in the galaxy, species that respected only strength. The council's authority rested on perceived invincibility. That perception was already shattered. Korra spoke carefully. If we grant you membership, what guarantee do we have you will not expand aggressively? That you will not conquer weaker species? Day One met her multifaceted eyes. The same guarantee you gave us when we asked for protection. None. You will simply have to trust that we prefer peace. And do you? We do, Day One said quietly. We spent a century building peace on Earth. We enjoyed it. We want to return to it, but we will never be helpless again. If someone attacks us, we will respond with overwhelming force. If someone threatens our allies, we will defend them absolutely. This is not negotiable. The Council debated for hours. Some species argued for war despite the cost. Others advocated for containment strategies. But slowly, inevitably, fear overcame pride. Humanity had demonstrated something the Council had not seen in millennia: the willingness to accept terrible losses to achieve total victory. The vote was close but decisive. Earth was granted provisional council membership with full military autonomy. The announcement was carefully worded to preserve council dignity, speaking of humanity's remarkable adaptation and unique perspective on security matters. Everyone knew the truth. This was surrender. As the human delegation prepared to leave, Valketh approached Daewon privately. You should know that some species will test you. Pride and fear make dangerous companions. They will look for weakness for opportunities to humble you. Daewon nodded. Let them try, once. That is all the chances we give. And if full-scale war comes, if multiple species unite against you, then we show the galaxy what humans look like when fighting for survival. And we make sure that even if we fall, we take enough enemies with us that no one will consider it victory. Daewon's expression softened slightly, but we hope it does not come to that. We genuinely want peace, Premier. We just refuse to be victims of someone else's violence. On the journey back to Earth, Jiwoo stood in the observation deck and watched the stars. So much had changed in 1 year. She had lost everything, gained purpose she never wanted, and witnessed her species transform from hopeful diplomats into something the galaxy feared. Admiral Bo-Ra joined her. You are thinking about your parents. I am thinking about whether they would be proud or horrified, Jiwoo said. We became exactly what the Council accused us of being. Violent, dangerous, barbaric. We became what we needed to be to survive. Bo-Ra corrected gently. Your parents died because we were not strong enough to protect them. That will not happen again. At what cost? How many people have we killed in the last month? How many species fear us now? All of them, Bo-Ra said bluntly. They should fear us. Fear creates respect. Respect creates space for diplomacy. The Council never respected us before. Now they do.